I am in a Superflex league that drafts Sunday.
Okay.
And I don't know where my draft position is until I'm right in the room.
Right.
So I'm going to need a little
randomized
help.
Before
real sicko stuff.
Yep.
What is the QB? Let's talk first about the ADP 1 through 10, because if you have a QB strategy, if you don't have one of the top 4 QBs, I just kind of want to get a little advice.
So this ADP, of course, is from fantasylife.com, where the consensus ADP tool takes the average draft position among all the major sites, puts it together. It's a great tool. You can pick and choose which site you want to use as well. But across all the sites in Superflex, Josh Allen goes 1, Lamar goes 2, Chase is 3, Jaden 4, Hurts 5, Bijan, Burrow, Jahmyr Gibbs, and then so on, as you see it here as we move on to the second level as well. But basically, it seems like that if you don't, the top guys go at the very top. But then, as we've talked about, if you're not one of getting those first guys, you're more comfortable getting a Bijan, a Gibbs, a CeeDee Lamb, a Chase, a Burrow, fill sort of out the first round. I want a quarterback in the first 2 rounds of a super flex. I don't mind if I'm picking in the middle to second half of the round there, Trista. I don't mind getting one of those elite players one of those elite positional players once the quarterbacks are gone. But on the come around, I want to get something there, because if you think about it, then by the time it gets you at the end of the third round, you don't want to go into the draft with, Matthew Stafford as your number 1.
Listen, you just don't want to end up in a situation where your 2 quarterbacks are Bryce Young and Michael Penix. That's just where you just absolutely you cannot end up there.
Like that?
You cannot end up there in that situation. You're going to do everything you can to avoid that.
That's factually correct as well. I will say this, that if you get sniped out of quarterbacks, one thing that a strategy that I do think would actually work here is drafting Joe Flacco, and hang on, hear me out. Again, in a Superflex league where you're desperate for a quarterback.
And Damar Hamlin?
Yeah. Make no mistake. Yeah, Penix and Bryce Young, and just try to talk himself into Daniel Jones on national TV.
You should as well.
Trista,
we
only
just
listen
read
to me.
the numbers on Bryce Young.
Trista, ignore the 2 of them. Only listen to me.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crouch's name dragged through the mud. He got 3 of the top 18 players by ADP apparently in a 12-team league.
There you go. No, what I will say is that Joe Flacco, I think, will be fantasy productive as long as he has the job. They're gonna sling it. He definitely has some YOLO to him. He was obviously very fantasy productive the last times he started for the Cleveland Browns. You may not know this, but he actually won Comeback Player of the Year based of those 5 games.
I thought Hamlin won it.
No, it was Joe Flacco.
Here's the problem with YOLO. He's gonna die, and you don't get to live twice.
How I say, he got that YOLO in him, but he got that sacked and them pick sixes in him too now.
I think Joe Flacco will be a viable fantasy quarterback as long as he has the job.
Week 1.
But I don't think he will keep the job all season. At some point, Jackson Dart is going to take over New York, and I think he's going to be very fantasy viable once he gets that job. So again, if you're sitting there late and you've gotten sort of screwed out of all these quarterbacks and you're desperately trying to figure it out, I do think a combo of Flacco and Dart actually is a viable QB2. Again, assuming you've waited on quarterback a little bit too long.
I just say the other guy who I want us to back up, and I don't like to compliment my man Lawrence Jackson, but Anthony Richardson, if he gets the job at some point, and Daniel Jones has a huge injury history, he runs, he's a risk. If AR gets the job because DJ is injured, then all of a sudden there is still a lot of upside in Anthony Richardson statistically.
Well, you mentioned just who you should pick up maybe as a QB2, but in Superflex, how important is it to pick up a third quarterback just in case there's an injury issue? Because if you just have one in a Superflex league, you're kind of behind the 8 ball. Yeah,
for sure. I think the answer to that question depends on your roster construction and who your first 2 quarterbacks are. Right? So, in our Superflex league, I'll just tell you, my 2 quarterbacks are Jaden Daniels and Drake May. Barring injury, I have no concerns about either of those guys losing their job. Those guys are going to be the starter all year long. I ended up grabbing a third quarterback. I have Stafford as my third just because it'll give you some trade options. But if you have 2 superstar quarterbacks or 2 guys that you feel really good about at quarterback, you don't necessarily need to draft a third. But if you're sitting there with Bryce Young and Michael Penix,
well, we're going to come back to these clips.
By all means, listen, there's upside, Lawrence. I actually don't mind it because
I like those guys.
Right. We like those guys too. We think they both have upside, and the rest of your team is really strong. but they clearly both have question marks.
Of course.
So what I'm saying is like your third quarterback is Anthony Richardson, which I don't mind as an upside play, but I'd have felt better with you getting somebody like a Stafford who's not exciting or sexy, but again, Stafford is going to start every single game barring injury, and I feel like Bryce Young and Penix will as well, but again, because there's some question marks, I think
right, they're going to have their jobs, and I feel good about them. Superstar, nah, but if I could get Bryce Young that second half of the season, he don't even have to do that good. If he just does that, I feel like the rest of the team should be able to help anchor it.
I think the answer to the third quarterback question, Jay, is just basically how good you feel about the first two.
Yeah, also, I've found Superflex drafts, everyone reaches for their third quarterback because they're worried about not just like the injury, but like bye week, do I have to throw a non-quarterback in a flex? It's like, I don't know, maybe instead of the third quarterback, just take Chris Godwin if he's on the board. Like, people, I think, do reach for that third
Well, and that's what I was just about to ask is, should you ever have a non-quarterback in that Superflex spot?
I mean, ideally, no. But at the same time, sometimes it's just unavoidable. And you're better off probably, you should go forward as though your two starting quarterbacks are hopefully going to be healthy and not reach for the third guy.
The other thing to remember is this is a violent game. I think the number is 56 different quarterbacks started a game last year. 56 different quarterbacks. And while you're not going to love, like, all right, I'm throwing out Easton Stick or whatever for this one game, right?
Easton
like
Stick.
He got
those
cut.
guys. Yes, I know he did. The Stick Man got cut.
But Stickman.
The Spencer Rattlers of the world, the Jake Hainers of the world, whatever. He also got cut. But my point is like, if you don't get a third quarterback and you do need one when a bye week comes up, chances are there will be a spot start quarterback that you don't love, but you can sort of live with for 1 week. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.